Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and today is Tuesday, March 22nd, 2016, and I have the great honor and distinct pleasure of welcoming back to the show Miss Tess Pennington, who has authored several books, including The Prepper's Blueprint. How are you today, Miss Tess?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Well, we've got some really great topics to cover, so we're just going to jump right in. What do you say?
I love it. Let's do it. Doing a lot of just some research, just to make some notes and stuff for talking about it. And I totally got into it, and now I want to write a big old article on it now because it's well, it's important because a majority of people live in the city, so it's good to let them know that it is possible. You've just got to change your way of thinking about it.
Yeah, and that was the whole point of wanting to start out with, the urban versus rural during a disaster. I mean, because about 70% of everybody listening to this lives in the city.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
and that, those numbers can't be denied. I mean, there
No.
are the fortunate few that are out there that are already protected. They're already away, but they already know what to do. They're doing it.
Yeah.
So what do you have to say about that? What does your research led you to as far as in relation to that aspect?
Well, I mean, it's basically the same stuff that I knew, but I just wanted to get some more details about it. The power grid will be an issue, the water treatment, which is another point that you made, and just how quickly I think a society can descend into chaos when their basic needs aren't met. So, it's and that's actually. Daisy Luther and I are working on a book about societal breakdowns. So we're still kind of in the beginning stages of it, but I mean, it's very real, and it's something that I think people need to be aware of. It's a bleak picture, but I think ultimately what just going over these notes and things from last night is, you can survive in a urban setting. You just you really just need to rely more on your skills and your ingenuity and knowing what's going to kind of come about, during that situation, so you can stay ahead of the game.
Exactly, and one of the things on the security front in regards to being in an urban setting, which I am. I mean, I'm 5 minutes from downtown,
Wow.
and one of the things that I looked at is the movie I Am Legend, which starred
Yeah.
Will Smith, and the way that he had all of his windows set up, which was really cool. I mean, but to bring that into everyday life is a little much. I mean, I can't have guests or my family coming into my home and they see that I've got this fortress going
Right.
on.
It's all fortified. Nobody can get out. Nobody can get in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but I mean, am I supposed to wait to the last minute? Am I supposed to wait till marauders are at the end of the street?
Yeah.
I mean, when am I supposed to do this? And it's not rhetorical. I'm asking when should I take these steps to start fortifying my house?
Just seeing the crime increase, there's those signs that you're going to start looking at, and you're going to start seeing. And I think inside of us is that innate feeling that, what, something's not right, and we need to get out of here, or we need to set this up, and you've got to trust your instincts. And, luckily you're kind of in this, alternative news. So you're already ahead of the game, where a lot of people are going to keep thinking everything's fine, or they're going to be panicking and just become complacent. You're actually, I think, will be one of the few who will spring into action and know how to lock themselves down and fortify the home and that sort of thing. One thing that I was looking at, because I was trying to find points that supported people, staying in urban environments during these type of situations. Um, One plus for that is that, there's going to be a plethora of shelters in an urban center, especially those warehouses with like heavy doors and, that type of thing. That's a really great type of area that you could fortify, especially if it was like up high so that you could kind of look down and see, what's going on below you. But, there's going to be a lot of metal rebar and that sort of thing that you'll be able to use, if you needed to, fortify your car to bug out or your home, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's getting there first is going to be key because
Yeah.
if you get there second, forget it.
Yep.
Forget it.
It's that, and that's one of the reasons I think why a lot of people, including myself, think that we moved out to the rural landscape just, for a variety of reasons. But, one of the things that I was really concerned about was martial law. There's a
Yeah.
lot of cities that are going to, try and shut it down, and you're going to be forced to stay inside your home, and you won't be able to allocate any additional resources. And, it's like you said, timing is everything. You've got to have everything in place. So that's, one thing against the urban centers is that.
Yeah, and that's a point that I've been trying to get my wife to understand is that there's only so many ways that you can get out of a
Yeah.
city or a a densely populated area without going completely rogue. I mean, there's the roads are going to be blocked, and
Mhm.
it's a distinct possibility that the authorities are going to be blocking them with either
Yeah.
military or police or a combination of
Mhm.
the two, and you're not going to get out.
We lived in Houston, so it was like, I think the third or fourth largest city in the US, and there were refineries and all kinds of craziness. But one of the things that we talked about, because there was only one or two main roads to get out of Houston, and with all the different hurricanes and when the evacuations that went on, we realized that that wasn't a viable option to bug out that way. So we looked at using the railroad systems and following that out of the city, and that's one of those things that, you're going to have to be physically fit, so that you can get out, or you're going to have some kind of a three-wheeler or four-wheeler so that you can take your family out on. So, there are alternatives, but and I think we'll talk about this, later on, but you just got to get creative. You're going to have to think outside of the box and find other ways, finding a stream and following it out. There's lots of rivers where we are, so we can do that, but maybe not so much in a majority of the cities, though.
Now, as far as you guys being in a rural setting, are you not concerned about marauders coming to you and being more isolated and being a little bit more vulnerable, perhaps? I mean, is that a concern?
Yeah, it really is. And with we live in a small California town, and it's great. It's very peaceful, but there are, like in any urban or rural or environment, there's questionable people,
Yeah.
and I definitely feel a little bit more isolated. We've got a few neighbors, but we're all on acreage, so they wouldn't hear anything. So we really do have to know our vulnerable points. Where on our property can people get in? What can we set up to kind of alert us? And we've talked about different security systems, but those are expensive. One, and then two, if the grid goes down, you can't access, the footage from your cell phone or from your computer. So, what good is it? So we've definitely um, started looking at different ways that we can, you know, block access to our property. So, that's definitely a concern. And, another one for me is, there's a lot of tweakers out here. A lot of people doing drugs. And I mean,
Yep.
it's just country living. And, they come into Walmart at the beginning of the month to get all their supplies, and, their lips are smacking and it's a little weird. I try to stay away. I try to stay away from Walmart, altogether, but I've been caught there a few times. But, um, that's when the shit hits the fan, they're not going to have access to drugs. They're not
Right.
going to have access to food, and they're going to come looking for it. So, that's one thing. My husband and I have gotten, our handgun licenses. I've got my, you know, uh, personal carry license. So, just in case something happens.
Yeah, I mean that's in my opinion that's a must. You've
Hmm.
got to have, security on your person at all times. And
And you have to be secure in your skill sets, to
yes,
be able to draw if need be. So, that's something that I've been working on. I'm very much a pacifist, but if someone comes at me or attacks my family, that's a totally different situation.
yep.
And, you have to train your mind to switch over in that kind of situation. So, yeah, there's a lot of components, I think, to prepping, more so than when I first started out. I didn't realize.
The depth and breadth of what it takes on.
Yeah.
And water, you had mentioned water a minute ago, and streams and following streams. I mean, is that something that people should be on the lookout? Should they be mapping those things out as I've been doing and figuring out where they're at? And can I drink from a mud puddle? I mean, is that help me to understand about water sources, because that's going to be a huge element if something goes wrong. And I want to make sure that people understand that we're not talking about necessarily, a completely um, total collapse of society. We're talking about Katrina or some other natural disaster that's going to happen. They do happen. This is called life. And
When I was going to say, when Hurricane Sandy hit, one thing I love about, the American people is, we all bind together in situations. And with Hurricane Sandy, there were people who had, they set out extra water that they had. They were trying to help, each other out. But when those resources become depleted, it's a totally different situation, and
yes,
people go back to they're out for themselves, and you can drink from a mud puddle, but you need to have uh, a filtration device on hand, like a life straw, but it's going to overwork your filter, getting all that sediment and bacteria out. So, there's definitely some things you can do, some tricks, and that's something that I wanted to say is, you can survive in an urban warehouse or an urban setting, but you're going to have to be able to rely on your skill sets. And now is the time to learn them. One of the most simplest things you can do is, have a bandana or a towel, or even a t-shirt, like a cotton t-shirt, tie it around your legs and walk through a field with high grasses early in the morning. You can collect the morning dew. It's called transpiration. It's when the dew settles on the grasses. You can also collect dew from tree limbs. These are the type of things that you'll have to fall back on when your short-term water supplies run out. You can also do solar stills. Have had actually a lot of success with that. It's a really great uh, beginner skill set to learn. So, you can look up YouTube videos, or online. They can show you how to do it. It's pretty easy.
now
But
now explain a solar still. What is that?
solar still is basically, you take a big bowl and you put grasses, some rocks, some dirt in the bottom. You fill it with water. the dirty water, whatever water you have on hand, and then you put like plastic wrap over the top, and you secure it. I usually put like a rubber band around it a little bit and make it a little wobbly, because I'll put like a rock on top, so the water will evaporate up. You put it in the sun and it evaporates up to that plastic, the cellophane, and then it drips back down and it collects. You put a cup, I'm sorry, you put a small cup or bowl in the middle of that debris before you put the plastic wrap on. And so it'll evaporate up and drip down into that small cup. And then, you've got water. There's a lot of people in South America that do that. They don't have, gallon water bottles. They're stuck doing it themselves. And that's one way that they do it.
That's news to me. I mean, I knew that you could take, either black plastic or clear plastic, and and either gather rain or generate some evaporation like what you described. But as far as the having debris like the grasses and the
Mhm.
dirt in a bowl, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's
It's just a natural filtration device. And you know what? I recently read that almost every building has, water sprinkler systems, and these can hold, thousands of gallons of water. So that could be safe drinking water that you could access, or, if you feel like it's questionable, you can always filter it. But um, optionally, there's also buildings that actually have water tanks right on top of their roof. So if you can find, doing research on where the rivers and the natural streams are, also do research and try and find out if, there's any buildings around your area that have these water tanks on the roof, because that would be, huge. It
that
would
would,
be gold.
yes,
It would
that
be
would be
like,
gold. Not like actual gold. It would be like life saving gold.
right, right.
What about antibiotics? I mean, are there any antibiotics that you have come across? Like I've read a little bit about the fish antibiotics. I mean, is that something that would be an alternative for people to stockpile, or what can I do? I mean, I'm not going to have a medicine cabinet full of Z packs and you know amoxicillin and all of that. I mean, are there alternatives to those that are going to store well and that I should be considering at this point?
Yeah, I've actually purchased the fish antibiotics, and they're the same as the human type antibiotics. But my biggest concern, that you have to make sure that you're using the correct dosage so that you don't over medicate yourself. And also, there are differences in human metabolism versus the metabolism of a fish. So you want to take that into account. And as well, there's some antibiotics like tetracycline that can become toxic after the expiration date. So, you definitely want to stay on top of the expirations. Um, I There are some reputable sites for buying antibiotics. One is antibioticsforsurvival.com. They're a great site to get those, you know, but as far as like other ones that I've actually purchased from that site, so I know that they're good antibiotics. But
Okay.
but there's a lot of other sites out there. My biggest concern is, how were these meds stored? Were they expired? Have they changed the expiration date somehow? I'm always a little skeptical of that. But
Yes.
for me, and one of the other reasons why we moved out to the rural area is because there's a lot of natural ways to get antibiotic properties, and some of those are honey and garlic, growing ginger. There's a lot of preppers who love colloidal silver. So having these kinds of alternatives on hand already grown and ready to go. And you can do a lot of these things uh, in an urban setting as well. Garlic and ginger and even turmeric are roots. So you just grow those, and they're tubers, so they reproduce constantly. So you'd have access to that if you started growing them now. So just staying on top of that kind of stuff and doing research on when the shit hits the fan and all goes to hell, and you're out of antibiotics, what can you grow? What kind of medicinal herbs can you grow to help stave off a flu or some type of virus? So, these are just this is kind of where I'm at with my whole prepping journey. I started out with, purchasing the freeze dried foods and, storing the foods. I even wrote a book about it, but, now it's for me, it's more of natural living and trying to get situated so that, when our food stores run out, will I have enough, heirloom seeds so that I can grow a garden, and for that matter, have the skills to keep the garden alive, because there's all kinds of things that happen with that. So, uh, we have successes and failures, but it's all a learning game for me.
Yeah, that just getting into the gardening aspect, that would be a whole nother show.
Yeah. I just started, I've tried all these different ways of gardening. I'm trying to simplify the situation, and this year I'm trying the straw bale gardening method. So I'll keep you updated.
Okay, cool. And you had mentioned ginger and turmeric and garlic, and I've been reading a lot about these three plants,
Hmm.
and it's ginger, turmeric, and garlic are like wonder drugs.
Yeah.
And some of what I've been reading, and I want to preface everything that we've been saying, Taz, that neither one of us are doctors. None of this is medical advice. So, um, got the disclaimer out there.
Yeah.
uh, you know, but what I'm reading is that turmeric attacks cancer cells,
Hmm.
and ginger attacks cancer cells, and they're finding that in these studies that ginger is like upwards of 10,000 times more potent in attacking cancer cells than chemotherapy. I mean, and I wanted to, a lot of people are not going to grow these items, but they are imperative that people at least consider having them as part of their prep items. You know, ginger, turmeric, and garlic. Aloe vera, grow some, put aloe vera plant in your windowsill also.
Right.
And what kind of shelf life should I expect? I mean, if I've got turmeric root and ginger root, and I've got them, stored properly, what are you finding in your research shelf life as far as the if I've got ginger root, it's still firm, it's still good. How is the potency? Are you finding anything on that as far as it diminishing or increasing or changing at all?
I've grown ginger. It's actually really easy to grow. I mean, you put it in a pot and you water it when it's warm. When it's cold, you bring it in and you continue to water it. And then, within, I think, 8 months, it's ready to harvest. Fresh, if you want to store it fresh, I think my ginger lasts about, I don't know, I guess maybe six weeks. What I do usually is I'll slice the ginger up real thin and I'll dehydrate it and just put it in a storage bag, and that lasts. I've had ginger for 2 years now, and
Wow.
I personally, that's how I like to do it, just so that my herbs and roots are ready for me when I need them. So if I want to make a tincture or a tea, like I make a lot of elderberry syrup in the wintertime, and I throw in ginger and dandelion root and all kinds of stuff so that my family doesn't get sick. So That's how I like to store it, and a dehydrator is, a prepper's best friend. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. So that lasts for years if you do it that way.
Okay.
I love ginger. I love turmeric. A lot of people don't, but I'll make a tea out of the turmeric root, and for me it tastes great. But I love herbal methods. I really feel like we have not tapped into the potency of these natural herbs, that just grow wild. There's one study regarding aloe vera. Everybody knows it's great for dry skin, and you can drink aloe juice for stomach ulcers and stomach issues. But there was one study in Thailand that they conducted that said that 2 tablespoons of aloe vera juice a day caused the blood sugar levels in type 2 diabetes patients to fall. So, there's a lot of concern in long-term disasters on how diabetics are going to survive. And it's finding these kinds of natural, derived medicines is one way to do that. I've also heard that safflower also helps with diabetics too. So again, I'm not a doctor. This is just things that I've read, but these are amazing, amazing medicines that you can have on hand.
Yeah, I spend quite a bit of time over at naturalnews.com, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where I'm learning a lot about. They have articles all the time about ginger, turmeric, and garlic, and how to use them and what they do, and it's kind of like cannabis oil.
Mm-hmm.
The more we study it, the more we find out why they don't want us to have it.
Yeah. Well,
Because it's like
I,
this wonder drug that just heals the body. It
I
heals it.
think I think the medical associations are making a killing on, killing us with
Oh yeah,
poisons, and they don't want people to know. Like oil of oregano. I love essential oils too. I know there's a lot of scrutiny going on about it, but I love it. So, oregano oil also has, natural antibiotic properties, and tea tree oil. And these are great things that you can have on hand and they store well.
yeah. See, the oregano oil. That's just now coming onto the radar for me, and the essential oils. All that is like a whole nother realm. Like I said, I'm just now beginning to tap into, but these root items are, it's amazing. It is
Hmm.
amazing. So
And there's so many out there. I mean,
so many.
you just kind of, you can do a quick Google search and just type in your issues and, natural medicine, poof, all these things come up. So, I have a lot of joint pain. I've got a previous injury, so I've got arthritis in one leg. So, I try and really rely a lot on natural medicines because, there's Aleve, and, that over the counter medicine's great, but it can screw up your liver, if you take too much of it. And, I don't want to I don't want to mess around with that.
Yeah, I love these big pharma commercials. Where it's, all of these items in your body are going to break, but you're going to fix this one.
Right? I know. I'm like, no, I really don't want bleeding of the rectum. Thank you.
Right. Or death.
It's on
This
that.
this taking this product can kill you or give you suicidal thoughts and actions. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
What do
cool.
I sign up?
Sign me up for a double dose.
I know.
Oh, it's crazy. So, is there anything else that we should cover, Miss Tess? I mean, I think we've covered quite a bit of ground here.
I think uh, just one thing I wanted to go back and kind of circle back to the urban survival. There's, if you plan on staying in the city, you need to know that population density is going to be your greatest threat, and you need to know that resources will be depleted. It's not just food and water, but the power grid's going to fail. There's going to be social disorder. There'll be the fuel in the gas stations are going to be depleted much faster. So I know for my husband and I, we were skating through Hurricane Ike, and we had no power. My father was nice enough to give us one of his generators, and my husband went to go fill up the gas tanks so that we could power the generator. And a fight broke out at the gas station because it's high stress, and you need to understand the psychology of disasters and know that people are not always going to be nice. It's high stress. They're going to be agitated. They're going to want to get this and get out. And, things happen, bad things happen. So you need to be aware of that.
Bad
But
things happen very quickly.
yeah, yeah. Disorder, I think I wrote an article, The Anatomy of a Breakdown. And, I think within 4 days, there's complete social chaos. People don't know how to get back to, normalcy. And they're just grabbing. They're grabbing at whatever they can find because they're out of their environment. They're out of their normalcy. So, I think that you need to keep all that in consideration. And if you are going to stay in the city, you need to at least plan on, not being able to access food, not having clean water, the power going down, not having a lot of fuel. So if you can get your preps in order with those 4 things, then I think that, you're starting to get to a good point in your preparedness endeavors. But, you also need to make sure that you can fortify your home.
Exactly. I was going to say security. Security is up there because if you can't protect yourself and your family, forget it.
Mm-hmm.
You will be run over. You will be swept
There's a
away.
there's a great book. It's the SAS Urban Survival Handbook, and I think that would be a really great uh, book for your listeners to look into. I think that there's some really great points in there. So
Well, I think
uh,
that Tess Pennington's The Prepper's Blueprint's a pretty great book too.
I've heard some pretty good things about that book.
That's a very good book, and you guys, I'll put a link to Tess's books below the video. And we've been speaking with Miss Tess Pennington, who operates the website readynutrition.com. And Tess, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you today.
You too. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, we'll do it again very, very soon.
Perfect. That sounds good.